Welcome to Cyberbulls, everyone. So today we're going to discuss all the recent updates made by Elon Musk and Tesla executives like Grace Tao, global vice president in China. From Elon's update on the reason Robotaxi event was delayed, new information shared about FSD and supercomputers, Grace Tao herself also announced that the Megapack Factory is on schedule and the Giga Shanghai is in full production, able to make one car every 30 seconds. Kathy Wood at Ark Invest is loading up on Tesla stock. And of course, next week is already the Q2 earnings call. We got the Bulls here with us today. I've got Tesla Boomer Mama, the Queen, Alexandra Mertz, Jeff Lutz, also known as Mr. Incredible, Xander's guy, the Froyo Tycoon. And joining us this week is Larry Goldberg, the Golden Bull. How you doing, Larry?
Pretty good, thank you.
Do you like the nickname, the Golden Bull?
I love it.
I don't know. Sounds a little... All right, whatever.
Did you get a haircut?
Pick another one, Dad.
Yeah.
Be nice with Larry. I love Larry. You all be nice now.
I asked him for short back and sides, and look what he did.
All right, let's get started, Larry. And actually, Jeff, we want to ask you this question. There is some news just recently with Grace Tao. She's the global vice president of Shanghai, or China, actually. And she announced that Giga Shanghai is 95% automated. She was interviewed, media event, and she said a few things, which is, first of all, that Megapack Factory is on schedule for 2025. It's going to be Tesla's first Megapack Factory outside US. That Giga Shanghai is maintaining their current production levels. They're confident in the China market. She's also talked about the supercharger expansion is ongoing in mainland China. And then there's this concern about pricing concerns for Tesla vehicles in China. And she said it's market driven, will aim to meet market demands. But this is one of the bigger stories is that they're now saying that they have 95% automated production at Giga Shanghai. And this is a pretty big deal. And so here's a number of reasons why they said they are able to do that. They were able to save 100 meters of production line through the use of vertical lifts. The 4 workshops are connected and manufactured parts can be transferred to within workshop. Fully automated production has now been achieved 95%. And the automation rate of welding workshop is around 100%. What do you think about all that, Jeff?
Yeah, that hits everything in terms of taking down your factory cost structure. Number one, they're hitting automation, which again, you have a capital inflow, which would obviously up front cost a little bit more money, but then over time, the capital plus labor component, if you're doing automation the right way, that total number would be lower. Then they're also hitting the size of the line. They took about 100 meters, I think 100 feet or 100 meters of space off the line. Yeah, so that's huge, off of each line, and then they're vertically stacking. So now you're talking about the output per square meter going up as well. They can take that other portion of the factory, they can use it. They could actually, use it for some other form of production or subassembly work. So you're hitting every facet of manufacturing COGS. When you improve automation, and then you take the output per square meter up, and it looks like they've improved a little bit on the click rate, 30 seconds of output. And when you do that, you're taking the cost per vehicle down. And so when you've seen the headlines over the last couple of months, and you've even seen some of the reductions happening in Shanghai, and everybody kind of jumps to one conclusion of like, oh, it must be, demand must be lower. And here what Tesla's doing in the background is they're increasing their automation. Now that percent automation usually is normally measured in terms of the number of tasks that are performed in the factory as a percent of those tasks. Some people also look at the percent of part numbers that go under manual assembly versus automated assembly. So that, that's a very sizable number. Some of the operations are near 100%. So, this is a big deal. It looks like Tesla is taking Shanghai, which is one of the kind of the original factories, and now they're bringing it up to speed and on par with the newer factories such as Austin and Berlin by making these changes, and then connecting the workshops together. That helps with material flow, and that also reduces cycle time. So so a number of really good changes. I expect to see lower COGS out of Shanghai. This also speaks to Tesla doing these interim vehicles prior to the Gen 3 vehicle, this new platform vehicle. and they would utilize this capex as well. So this is actually a really strong move and good news if you're tracking COGS and gross margins for Tesla.
The company and the product. I don't look at the quarterly stock movement.
A very realistic bull, questioning certain decisions.
The rational bull. I enjoy listening to bears.
Looking for the red flags. You're supposed to react.
Yeah, we only earned 50 cents a share the last quarter. I mean, come on, guys.
I was going to ask you, Jeff, that Larry actually has a different opinion than you do. Okay, we want to see you both, explain your point of view. You've said that you believe that the new, more affordable cars are more likely going to be built in Giga Shanghai. Larry thinks it's going to be done in Giga Texas. Larry, why don't you explain why you think that's the case?
Well, I think they're going to be built in both factories, but I think the engineering, what I did say is that the engineering for the new vehicles is being done in Texas. And that's because it's under Elon's eyes. In fact, I'm certain they're being done in Texas under his general supervision. Whether or not they get built, they get into production first in China or in Texas is, to me, an open issue. But it seems natural to be in Texas since they're engineering the line in Texas. And so I'm thinking. And by the way, I think they're using the same line as the Model 3 line in Texas, which is underutilized anyway. So I'm almost certain it'll be in Texas first, and I think it'll be in Texas as in terms of production design.
What do you think, Jeff?
It would be news to me if Model 3 was being produced in Texas. There's likely reasons for both scenarios, but in terms of time to market with 95-97% local sourcing that Shanghai has, and really the speed of kind of tooling and fabrication in that area, these programs look like they were under a very sharp schedule, very short and sharp schedule, and where days and hours matter. So, I mean, they could have done the front end of the work. They could have done the first prototype, the industrial design and the first prototypes out of the U.S. That's another thing that has been done before in other industries, where you split the development work, and when you're going into production tooling, you move it to the site that can do the work and do the final integration more quickly. And usually that, in this case, it would have been in China. So I think it's either being done end to end in China, or it's being finished off. They'll start production in China, but I agree, they'll be doing manufacturing in all regions of these vehicles, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd be very surprised if the engineering is not being done under Elon's nose.
I think Elon is busy. He's working on the robot. He's working on the unboxed model. He's working on the Robotaxi design, all in Giga Texas. So he's busy.
Very busy, but the one thing that he doesn't let out of his
is the design.
Two little hands is the design, and that product is going to be Elon's product, nobody else's product.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, these are supposed to be spins of, I don't think these are going to be. I don't know if they're going to be entirely new vehicles, but we'll see. We'll see. I think it depends what you call design. Some people call industrial design the front end work, the packaging of the vehicle, how it's going to look, the exact dimensions, but the actual back and forth iterating of prototyping, sometimes you'd want to do that in a region that you'd get the kind of speed. So if he really believes that they're going to go into production at the end of this year or the first part of next year, I don't believe that's being done in the US yet, but we'll see. Like I said, it could be a hybrid. It could be a hybrid of both.
Okay, Alexandra.
Sorry.
I don't have anything really to add. I mean, Jeff and Larry have a good grip on this subject. I just find it incredible that we never hear that these projects are, first of all, happening, and second, the new ones on time, because we always hear about, other car makers being 95% automated, and that goes all over the globe. Now, this news didn't make much waves, right? It is what it is.
Yeah. One car every 30 seconds is crazy. And then here's some better news as well.
But Herbert, don't just gloss over that. 42 seconds was the previous record that they announced, and that was supposed to be the fastest in the world. To get down to 30 seconds is just it's unimaginable to me. 30 seconds a vehicle, it's incredible.
Yeah, vertical lifts, right? That's amazing. And here's the Tesla Model 3 in China is now extended wait times. So it used to be that in July 11th, it was changed from 1 to 4 weeks to 2 to 4 weeks. And then now it's pushed to 3 to 5 weeks recently. So things seem to be stabilizing in China, and the Model 3 is improving quite well.
But I feel like this article comes out the first month of every quarter, and the first month of every quarter, they're focused on exports. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a true, domestic demand increase, or, I don't know what the wait times are. Are these China wait times, or are these global? But usually they do their early production in the quarter for stuff that they're exporting, which would increase the lead times domestically.
Well, I mean, there may be less exports to Europe now with the tariffs, right? So maybe, this is a quarter where things are shifting considerably. And maybe they're going to different markets. Maybe they're more destined to China sales. I think we just have to wait and see.
What do you guys think about, obviously Tom Zhu's now full-time in Giga Shanghai. You got Grace Tao doing a great job communicating to the Chinese consumers. It just feels good. It feels like they've got a good relationship Tesla has with the government, and things are at this point looking very good. So many, just every week there's some news that comes out, right? What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, what could be bad about any of that?
Yeah. Okay. Let's more news that's come directly from Elon in last week. I mean, every day there's something that he's tweeting out, giving us an update. Here's the most recent one. Chuck Cook came back from his trip, and he said that he saw these Tesla drivers testing out what he thought was 12.4.5. Is this a new version of that? And Elon said, actually, it's 12.5. So version 12.5 is being tested now. And then he did clarify that the amount of testing time it takes to figure out if a new AI is better than existing AI, as measured by miles between interventions, is a limiting factor on the progress, because the better the FSD gets, the longer it takes to find interventions. That's, I think, the way he's positioning why 12.4 is taking longer, while 12.5 is taking longer. And then just this morning, Chuck Cook said that, it was he saw that one of the vehicles that he saw is using a Starlink Mini. And he asked Elon, can you help clarify if the Cybertruck is still in line to get FSD with the release of 12.5? And here's the pictures that Chuck shared. There's a Starlink Mini there. And Elon replied to him saying, yes, the Cybertruck FSD releases with 12.5, which also finally merges the city and highway code. But you know what? Everybody's freaking out, but Cybertruck is so small numbers. It's like the three of you guys are happy, but the 99% of all of us don't care.
Hey, can you take that marketing budget and put it towards the Cybertruck? Thanks.
So what do you think about FSD releases, Xander?
I mean, we got it, the 12.4 on the Model X, and I was blown away. My wife is not so happy because of the sunglasses thing, and I warned her that there's issues. It might go into the wrong lane or something. So she the biggest gripe that she has is with the it's not truly nag or no nag. But it is a game changer. So I'm very excited for it. I can't wait to get it on the Cybertruck. So I look at what is the progress that's being made, not what are the deficiencies or the regression that occurs. So I'm very excited for it. I love that each version, I saw someone post that 12.5 is trying to do too much. And I think about how Elon stated that each new iteration is actually like its own new version. So I think there's a lot happening, and we're truly moving towards autonomy and and I look forward to it.
Are you guys concerned at all? Do you guys feel like FSD is more or less still on track? Is that proper? Do you think that, what we were excited about 12.4 coming, 12.5, and then of course the delay of the Robotaxi event. I know this has been covered really well, but this is another thing that Elon just said last weekend, by the way. It's only been a week, less than a week, a few days ago, 5 days ago. He said, requested what I think is an important design change to the front, and extra time allows us to show off a few other things. He's finally explained why the Robotaxi event was moved. Are you guys feeling like, that we're still on track? What do you think, Alexandra?
Well, first of all, does anybody have any news what it means, how much of a delay it is? Is it those famous 2 months, or do we have a new date? Do we have a new location? Because I had initially the feeling it's going to be in Austin, then we heard Los Angeles, maybe wherever. Does anybody know anything, or are we just now waiting again?
Well, Xander seems to believe very strongly that Warren Redlick's source, which was supposedly an engineer. Go ahead, Xander, what you think?
Let me know if my audio is clipping, but I don't see it the same way as, like, if it says 2 months and it's July, I think that we need 2 months from today, not from 8/8. So that's all I have to say on that.
So you think it would be in September? That's what you mean?
It's possible.
And you live in Austin. Do you hear anybody saying it's going to happen in Austin, or are we just in the dark?
Dark.
Alexandra, you're the one with the direct connection to Elon. Why don't you ask him?
I have no direct connection. I have no direct connection. The only thing I know is that I'm invited and that I will have a +1, so that's nice. But I'm sure lots of you will also be invited. But I really would love to know when and what, because if it's one of those typical Tesla things that we have 3 weeks of advance notice, well, we're just going to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be in November.
Ooh, there goes Larry.
Well, yeah, Larry
Any news or just finger in the wind?
Yeah.
I think it's going to be in November, and I think we'll see the first. We'll see multiple prototypes on the stage. One will be a Robotaxi, but we'll see the new designs as well.
You mean we will see other van versions of the Robotaxi,
No,
or we will see
no.
other models
We'll see the new models, the new electric models.
Well, then it's Austin, right? I don't think they will put multiple cars somewhere else. No, yes, maybe.
No, Alexandra, you might have missed this, but there's some Larry proposed this idea that he thinks that maybe this Robotaxi event will go to November. Jeff agreed with him. And the reason is they think that, how they said that the more affordable vehicles may be done by first quarter next year, maybe even
or
this
early
year.
late year.
So now they're going, ooh, I bet you November, maybe the timeframes can work. And I'm like, no, but go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the one more thing. I think one of the things the market has been trying to tie Tesla down to is just like, is there some sort of fatigue with their existing models? You can agree with it or not agree with it. I don't know if I tend to agree with it as much, but introducing these new models, I think, would be received very well by not only retail investors but also Wall Street, because now you're going to have this little bit of model proliferation. But if you look at the volume per model that Tesla does, they're still well advantaged from a supply chain perspective. And it looks to me like they're really starting to batch build even further S and X. So the new models that they introduce will be much higher volume per SKU. So if that's kind of a one more thing on that event, I think the additional things that Elon was talking about, would be additional features that may be available or more stable 2 months later or 3 months later than they would have been in August. But like I said, if it is pushing that late into November, there's an opportunity that we get a preview of those vehicles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
it'll be a big deal. I think it'll be like I said, a big deal for the company because now the path, like, well, how are they? They said they have 3 million units of capacity. How are they going to fill it up? And the answer is, well, now we have these new lower cost models, and I think these models will be on the order of $4,000 to $6,000 cheaper to build, and it will put them in a position where, as if the IRA was under some sort of attack, if you had the whole Congress and the president, everything go in one other direction, and they actually do go after it. I think there's other legislation that is actually a higher priority for them to go after. But if they do something with that, Tesla has the ultimate insurance policy, and Tesla's built a company where they don't need these subsidies. And I think you'll hear more about that.
I doubt whether the IRA is the first thing a new administration, if Trump were to sweep, would focus on. They may get there, but I don't think that's going to be their focus. I think they're going to have their hands full with a lot of stuff that they're going to be doing. So I'm not that concerned about the IRA. Listen, the IRA did nothing to help Tesla. Nothing at all, in my judgment. I think it's a huge waste of money by the federal government and an incredible disaster as far as the charge stations are concerned. So as far as I'm concerned, they could repeal the whole IRA and Tesla would be better off. And the only thing that Tesla really needs are the credits, or the EV credits. But other than that, I think Tesla's doing great without them.
Yeah, I actually think IRA hurt Tesla because how many people are hanging on to their vehicles because it was devalued by 7,500 versus trading up to the new model? So,
no, I think you're right.
Okay. So there's a lot of things are about to happen. I still don't believe that they're going to show additional vehicles. Although you guys have pointed out that he kind of hinted that they might. I think there should be a Robotaxi event. There should just be Robotaxi event, and then they can add the additional vehicles in another, venue, another time. And the one more thing should be something very, very powerful about Robotaxi. And the reason I say that is that this particular event is bigger than it's the whole point of the event is to change the vision of what Tesla is. Tesla is no longer a car company. It's a whole new book. If they add, oh, by the way, we've got so many new vehicles, it just dilutes the message. We are
I agree with you.
Robotaxi.
Herbert,
We are
listen
Robotaxi.
to that. I agree with you. I agree with you. I think it's first time in how many years?
That's right. Okay. So that leads to the next topic of what Elon was talking about, what he was doing this weekend while, of course, lots of things were happening this weekend. It's, what do we think? It's about compute, right? It's about the data centers. And so this XAI posted this photo of Elon actually in the data center in Memphis, one of the biggest supercomputers that they're building. It's he's route photons as elite fiber tech. And Elon said, I was pulling network cables on Saturday to understand the critical path better, went through both the Tesla and XAI supercomputer clusters. I mean, I love that. Music to our ears. Yeah.
Wait, let me ask that. So does that mean those supercomputer clusters are at the same location?
Ooh. Hmm.
Could be, could not. It may not be. There's no telling. Well, I don't understand why it would be of any consequence.
If they
what do you
were.
mean?
Well, it seems to be in Memphis, right? If we connect the dots.
No, they haven't started Memphis development.
No. He said he went to Memphis they're looking for stuff in Memphis, right? Is that?
Yeah. I mean, but they've got a whole lot of
Memphis.
Okay, well, maybe I'm wrong. I thought they were still doing the.
What? Larry's wrong.
Yeah, I'm wrong.
Herbert, this is your day. This is your day.
It's my day today.
This episode had to come.
Once in a blue moon, twice in a clock. Yeah. I getcha.
Can somebody Photoshop Mary's face onto that? 'Cause I'm sure she's always pulling wires and getting her hands dirty.
Yeah.
She's very busy managing the DEI process at General Motors.
Okay. We got news about that, of course, as well. They did not hit the 1 million. We'll get there. But yeah, so this is just what he's talking about, which is great, right? Talking about FSD. He's talking about, the fiber. And of course, he's been very, very political as well. He did share this, and I think a lot of us kind of just went past this, but I think this is a big deal, right? Tesla announced a new Model 3, a rear-wheel drive that is $35,000. That's if you take into consideration the $7,500 IRA credit, but you got 363 miles of range. This is the mythical sub $35,000 car that we all were looking for at 363 miles of range. This is big, right?
Yeah,
You guys think it's big?
It's a huge thing. Yeah, I mean, it could make a big impact on sales in middle America. I'll tell you that. Big issue.
Well, I don't, but I don't think you're correct, Herbert, in saying it's 35,000. It's sub 30,000. It is 35,000 after the credit. So it's 42.5 minus the 7.5 gets you to the
Right.
34.99.
That's what he said.
So you're
30,000.
Still not stop 35,000. I said 35,000. Did I say 30? Okay. Yeah. So it's big deal. Okay. It's like, it's a deal. Okay. So this happened, of course, in the weekend. We can't just gloss over it. I'd like to have the panel here talk about it because this is important. Elon went out and fully endorsed President Trump. And then he himself said that there's been 2 times that people have tried to kill me in the past 8 months. They were arrested with guns about 20 minutes drive from Texas headquarters. We did, and he said this at the annual shareholder meeting, I think. We did have 2 homicidal maniacs in the last 7 months come to try to kill me and a bunch of other people. There wasn't an actual issue that they articulated. They were just in a homicidal maniac career.
Yeah, it's very vulnerable. It's very vulnerable.
I was going to say, unlike Trump's security detail, Elon's people took it very seriously.
I hope so.
They did, and I just want to point out that we did this shareholder letter that's in the mail now. It should be in Austin Friday or beginning of next week, where 3,149 Tesla shareholders signed and want the board to know that it's okay if they need to increase the budget for security. We don't have any pretension knowing, better than them. That's not the point. I just want to give them some coverage that this is really requested also by shareholders. So the setup, if I understood it right, because they did touch on the subject in the proxy this year, is that Elon has his own company that runs his security. So he's actually, his own boss for his own security company, and that security company bills Tesla for a certain amount of time that is Tesla related. So last year that was for $2.4 million. This year already by February, if I recall it right, it was already 500,000. So it is obviously increasing at the moment, and we just wanted to express that as shareholders, the ones that signed, we were okay for that number to go up significantly, and not only to cover Elon, but also find adequate solutions for the board, for the employees, and for the sites. I found that when we had all these riots at Giga Berlin,
yes,
I looked at it with a skeptical eye and thought, well, it doesn't look as if there's much security out there. Maybe there was. I mean, I obviously wasn't on site and can't criticize it, but from here, it looked rather worrying. I just want to make sure that they shouldn't be too frugal, I think that's the word, on security, especially in these times. These are highly sensitive political times, and will be for a couple of months still. And Tesla is a target, and Elon put himself out there and became an even bigger target than he already was. So we just, as shareholders, want to make sure that they know they have our backing if it needs to be increased.
Thank you for putting that all together, Alexandra. It's very important. I do have to just ask, why are shareholders putting this letter forth? Like, as in, is it a role for us to do, or? Why is it
I
needed?
mean, obviously Elon is a key person risk in Tesla's setup, but not only Elon. That's why the way we phrased it. I think board members are exposed as well. I mean, Tesla is a controversial company. I mean, we all love it, but the press is so harsh on us that people that want to hate on Tesla, and that people that want to hate on Trump now implicitly also will hate even more on Elon, hence Tesla. So I think there's just so much linked to it. And the last thing I would like to live through is, let's say, God forbid, there would be something more material as a threat. And we would have the feeling that they felt, shareholders wouldn't have approved because the budget now has to be 10 million. I mean, again, I have no idea how the key of repartition is between the other companies and Tesla, because Tesla is only paying a part of this. I'm sure Elon is also stemming a lot of his own budget for security. But I just wanted to make sure that they know, and obviously this actually wasn't my idea. It was one of my followers who had the idea that we do a letter for that, and I followed up on it. And I just feel like it was one of those moments. And he actually replied and said he really appreciated the thought that they have in their books a document that shareholders, more than 3,000 shareholders, requested this immediately in the week after President Trump's issues.
Assassination attempt. Yeah.
Assassination, exactly.
He replied to you. Okay, I didn't see that part. I should have copied it and put it in my list. Sorry, I missed it.
No problem.
I think what's important is the what. It's honestly, there should be a third party, just not to solve it on this call, but there should be a third party review of his security, and the target or the gap analysis should be conducted to, the security for, any public figure or private figure in the world. Like, why wouldn't it be on par with the best in the world? And, commission, there's several, major third-party private security firms, and then figure out what that gap analysis is, and then figure out if it needs additional funding or not. And there's many structured approaches to figure out what the risks are, what's the probability of occurrence, and so forth. So they should go off and do that. I mean, I think the other thing would be key executives. In my experience, that would be the next priority. And then, and then the sites. I agree. The sites have to need multiple layers of security. So I think it's money well spent. I think the employees there would appreciate it, and it's an important thing to do.
Yeah, and I saw your comment, and Jeff, and I fully appreciated it, because you're right. I mean, Elon is the smartest cookie in town. There's no doubt about it. But when it comes to his own security, he obviously has the bias of how much slack he wants, how much how he wants to conduct his life. Now it's his own company, so which is all good. I don't mind that setup at all. But you're right, Jeff. Letting other people from the outside come in and just recheck everything, make sure this is all up to the standard, and not only to Elon's liking, it's probably a good idea.
I want to add that first of all, I loved how Alexandra said key person risk. So politically correct, very awesome.
I mean, I was all week not politically correct, so let me give it.
To be clear,
my immediate reaction, and I have messages and with my options guys that this is what I worry about Elon. So this is within minutes of this occurring, and so for you to push this forward, and thank you to your subscriber or fan. I agree. I completely agree. I think it's a worthwhile investment. While the company will be fine long term without Elon. In order to reach these $30 trillion valuations, ultimately you need you need Elon to keep people and redirect them back where they need to go.
Okay. When do you guys think that Elon might announce the master plan part 4? All in the same event? No.
I mean, there's so much coming in the next 6 months. It's incredible. It's just nonstop.
Do you think it will be within the next 6 months? Who here thinks it's going to be before the end of the year?
Well, that's about the same time, right? We're middle of July, so 6 months is middle of January.
Mm-hmm. Come on, put up your hands, guys. Who here thinks it's going to be here before the end of the year? I don't.
I don't. I mean, Master Plan 3 is anything to go by. It took a year and a half after he
Oh, it did.
announced.
Okay. All right. Thank you. It just seems too many things are going on. All right.
Yeah.
So, Jeff, you were asking for us to put in a CyberBulls overlay. So tell me if you like, let's say that's one option here. That's another one. It's another one. I think that's the same, isn't it? Yeah, that's one that's smaller. What do you think?
Yeah, one of the blue ones. It's fine. Yeah,
How about that
put it
one?
right over.
How about that one?
Good job, Herbert.
I like the square
You done
one.
for the day?
I want red. I want red. I want red with my nails and
it's-
my glasses.
it's-
Here we go.
No. We're going to go with this one, okay? A little tiny one. There you go. What do you think, Jeff? I did it. Jeff,
Congratulations.
This was all a setup, Larry. This was all a setup, so he doesn't have to run this by me. So they just had this whole plan, and I fell for it.
Otherwise, we're going to go with the red. That's what could happen. No. All right, we'll keep that on.
Jeff.
Okay, so Jeff, you wanted me to bring up that while we're talking about what happened with Elon and Trump, that you thought that the news about Mary Barra is part of that. So Mary Barra was being interviewed recently. They've been saying for years that they're going to hit 1 million electric vehicle capacity target by 2025. Of course, they backed off. They only have less than 200,000, even less than 20% of this. We're seeing a little bit of slowdown right now. We won't get to 1 million because the market's not developing. We'll get there. So the market's the reason. What do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, she's talking about capacity too. She's not even talking about sales. So what they're saying is they're not going to even make the attempt to produce 1 million units. Which means there's no chance of sales exceeding that. And it's really a lot of companies. This has actually happened over the last 18 months, and even a couple of years before that, when they put out their initial set of vehicles, whether it's the F-150, the Mustang Mach-E, or the Cadillac Lyric, and some of these different vehicles from Ford and GM, and they realized that their unit they were designing for stagnant MSRPs that were like COVID MSRPs, where the Model Y was in the $60,000 range, and they were designing vehicles up in that range. They didn't have the ability to produce anything profitably below $40,000. So therefore, they had went and they'd made some long-term commitments to battery suppliers and other suppliers. They made long-term commitments to some of their capital vendors, and they've really put the brakes on those things. They've even reversed many of them. It's not just a pause. It's just like, hey, get this out of here. Even Ford selling off, telling cattle to sell off CapEx, and cattle said, "Oh, sell it to Tesla," and then that's what Tesla's buying it. So what's happened is they're kind of like seeing like, hey, there's a pretty good there is a chance, a greater than zero chance, or maybe a high probability chance that the next administration isn't as supportive. But I think I would be careful with that, and I agree with Larry. I don't think the first thing they're going to do on January 21st is going to be to get all bodies of Senate, Congress, and so forth to repeal the IRA. And if they did, it's not the end of the world at all for Tesla. So, but I think it is the end of the world for these companies. They were producing most of their EVs in Mexico to get the labor rates basically to be a fraction of what they have to pay in the US. And they were depending on the IRA, and those two connected together gave them something that allowed them to only lose $30,000 per vehicle, $40,000 per vehicle on a contribution basis. So they are completely upside down and dependent on it. And their hybrid business is dependent on it as well. So I think these CEOs are doing is they're like, okay, there's a high probability that there's not going to be as much support for this going forward as there is today. Pull back on that CapEx. And we'll put it elsewhere. Certainly don't spend it during this time frame. So it really opens it up for Tesla. As long as consumers really want EVs, and which everybody believes that they do, the net promoter scores are very high for very well performing, well designed EVs. That this really, I think, opens it up for Tesla. If you couple that with these new lower cost vehicles, there's a lot of momentum, I think, that could be building for Tesla, and lower rates as a backdrop.
there are some, there are some headwinds in that Tesla has to face. The first is that hybrids have become so inexpensive because of the IRA, and because they can put in 35 kilowatts of battery and they're done, whatever it is. I mean, it's some ridiculous number. I haven't followed it, and so this is the kind of escape valve that the major manufacturers are using, which is why I think the IRA has been so bad for EVs in general and Tesla in particular, because the better you are at EVs, the worse this is for you. So yeah, I think that the majors giving up on EVs is just a function of that particular impact. So in fact, if they dumped the IRA, it would be probably very, very good for Tesla. The other issue in terms of headwinds that Tesla faces is, California sales, California penetration is down, and that could be a political factor. So, Tesla's having, or Elon's having this fight with California, and it could well be that there's a factor there. So, there's pluses and minuses here.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to add to this whole political California and whatever else discussion. We always hear about people, attacking Elon. Elon shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done that. Do also know that the biggest short seller of Tesla, Sessa Capital, the founder of Sessa Capital, is one of the major Democratic donors. So this is at so many levels between, politics and corporate investments and whatever. It's crazy how it's intertwined. It's very difficult to understand. I have no pretension saying I understand it all, but this is happening on so many levels. It's crazy.
I think you're right, Alexandra. But the good news is Cesar will be bankrupt at this rate, and so we won't have to worry about him.
Yeah, a couple.
I'll actually update you on them in 4 weeks, where we are with them.
A couple of points I did not point out was Elon did have a couple of posts saying that he's going to move the SpaceX headquarters to Texas. He's going to move X headquarters to Texas as well. He's fed up with California. Last straw was the new law that Gavin Newsom just signed. So yeah, this warfare against California is heating up and continuing to blow up, I guess, continuing to get worse.
The good news is we may see sales pick up all the way across middle America now, so, you win some, you lose some. So we'll see, but it's very interesting.
You mean sales for U-Haul?
Right.
All right. So, there's a feeling that good news is happening for Tesla. The story had changed. We're seeing that fund managers have started to change their tune. So we've got a couple points that I pointed out here, which is Ark Invest is loading up. So that's one, which is Ark's Kathy Wood sees Robotaxi delay as a positive sign. She said this before Elon actually confirmed that Bloomberg article was, some parts of it were true. She's holding on to 16%, right? So normally she needs to sell down to 10%. That's the rule, but she feels like she's going to keep holding on for 16%. At the same time, Morgan Stanley, this was a couple weeks ago, I guess, he had a lunch with more than 20 client Tesla Bull Bear lunches. He does this quite regularly. And the first time that the majority of them felt that there's going to be a $50 move upwards rather than lower for Tesla stock. And then the big thing that was new was that for 90 minutes, we talked about energy storage, humanoids, AI, FSD, China, geopolitics, and the 8.8 Robotaxi Day. The topic of cars was almost completely absent from the discussion. So doesn't it feel like things are changing? We're starting to hear the firms talking about energy, right? The first time Morgan Stanley said that energy is going to be larger than auto. They did a whole note on that. And then this conversation. Yeah, what do you think, Alexandra?
Yeah, let me maybe add a couple of things with the funds. So ARK has been in the past at 16% from time to time, but always only very temporarily, then cut it down to 14, and price action and their own positioning usually brought it down closer to 10% again. So this time she's really holding on to 16%, yet you may from time to time see sales. What are the sales? Those are only happening when the stock moves further up, and by it moving further up compared to the other small and medium caps she has in those funds, she then needs to get some Tesla out of it. So don't get panicked if we see smaller sales in those funds. It's just a matter of that. I mean, 16 is already huge for what they should be doing. Why do I say that they should be doing? Well, the way ARK sells their fund to institutional investors, about half of ARK are institutional investors, a little bit less at the moment, but over time was about half, is that they promise to these institutional investors, remember, those people could invest in anything themselves, right? But here they want them to have in the ARK funds. So they tell them that they won't be too specific on one single stock, notably Tesla, because if those institutional investors want Tesla, they can buy Tesla themselves. So the promise is this old diversification rule of 10%, but when you are at 10%, they slipped in, well, fair enough, we can let it run. So how much? So as soon as ARK was at 10%, ARK never continued to purchase Tesla stock. They just let it run upwards. And so that's why it's now at 16%. It could be a little bit higher if they let it run all the way, because that was just the stock price increase. So the fact this works is while the stock is increasing, we may see a couple of little sales to keep it at 16%, which is already very high. But if the stock goes further down, which obviously we don't hope so, they will not add any more, because since they are way over 10%, they cannot add anything. Interesting enough, in Real Meat Kevin, I never know, in his PP ETF, he had for a long time Tesla not in the first position, but with the stock moving up, it became number one again, was now at nearly 19%. At its highest, PP had Tesla at 25%, which is their limit for a single stock. And so now it was at 19%. And today, of nearly all the top position, he trimmed off 3 or 2%, sorry. So same for Tesla. So it went down from nearly 19% to nearly 16%. So it is still number one position. The second one is Apple, which is now below 10%. But there's no doubt in those fund managers to still have it as a number one position. They may have a need for liquidity. That's what Kevin did this morning. He sold about 15% of all stocks to put it into a government bond ETF, more or less liquidity, so that he had a higher liquidity cushion, because he thinks the market as a whole will draw back, but their conviction on Tesla is fully intact.
Okay. So Alexandra, you keep track of all of, or I think all, right, of all fund managers.
Well, not anymore. I did for 3 years daily, and then came the whole vote thing, and I just didn't have time. I mean, there was only so much. There were only 24 hours in the day.
Yeah.
So I stopped middle of May doing that. And the other issue is I had a very nice person in Italy who helped me set up a number crunching system where the key numbers were pulled directly from the website and already prepared for me, so that I only had to then do my stuff. But then ARK changed their website again, and so the whole thing collapsed again, and that would have really needed to get individual numbers from the website again. It was too much. So I'm not doing it anymore, but I do keep every week or every 2 weeks a close eye on them. I mean, I still have obviously my 3 years of statistics that I've done over the time, but I'm not, I mean, I'm sorry for Gary, but looking at Gary's fund with 1,250 shares in them is a waste of time.
Yeah.
So while I think Kevin is interesting because he has a completely different trading approach. So it's interesting for me. Or VCAR is very interesting because they do options. There's no point doing it on a daily basis. And then with ARK, I monitor them every evening what they did as trades. So I keep an eye on those and obviously have it, but I don't do my daily tables anymore. It became too much.
Well, the reason why I'm saying that is because I think you will be getting more of them, because here's the part. Morgan Stanley said this: at the same time, the vast majority of the attendees said they did not own Tesla stock in their portfolios in any meaningful size. So they were saying, they're very bullish about it now, but they still don't. So my expectation is you will start seeing more fund managers buying Tesla stock.
And so many, I did that analysis about half a year ago. So many funds are not even at benchmark, right? They should have a certain percentage, depending on which benchmark they have, of Tesla, and they're underweight, and they're still underweight. So the moment, and they're still underweight given the progression of the stock, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. So there is an enormous potential for institutional purchases, and actually we'll get today or tomorrow the positions of the institutionals end of June. So we may have some more insight on whether that is already happening now.
I want to ask the panel the same question, and you guys all answer it, maybe to give yourself 2-minute answer. To what extent is the retail investor important versus the institutional investor with regards to what will happen to the stock, if it's going to go up or down? How important is the retail investor in all this? Let's go with you, Xander, first.
Oh, why you gotta put me on the spot?
Oh, you're the one who knows the retail investor. You got your finger on the pulse there. You're the options trader. You kind of feel it.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know if I deserve it, but thank you. I think that retail prior to 200 was kind of not as important, but now that we got past it and we got past the multi-year trend line, I think that we actually matter. Those people that have funds or are maybe tapping into, 10% margin or something conservative, those are they could move it a little bit, but really as Alexandra mentioned, it's really institutionals that can move it to that, like everyone's calling for 300. What would make it move there? So I'm still not, YOLOing into these like 350s, 400s for a year out. I don't feel comfortable with any of that. But like now I am holding things overnight in 3-month to 6-month option. And that's not something I used to do. So if I'm doing it, it makes you wonder what other retail investors and option traders are doing it.
Okay, Larry?
Look, the stock is doing 100 million shares a day of volume. Fair amount of that is reflective of option trading. But when you're getting that level of volume at $250 a share, I mean, retail is important, institutional important, options are important, everything's important because the volume is so massive. So if retail doesn't turn up, it would impact the volume. If institutions didn't turn up, it would impact the volume. So I think both the day traders are important. I think everybody's important. It's a huge volume of dollars. It's a huge volume of shares. It's a massive amount of options being traded. Everybody's important in this stock.
Yeah, Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would just say, just in the last couple of months, there's been some negative overhang sentiment that's been mostly eliminated, and you can see that you can see the stock actually outperforming its relative indices of late, and there's been a real sentiment shift, and you need multiple components. I do believe there will be a point, and they'll be late. By the way, retail will be ahead of institutions, but I think both are kind of laying into this thing right now and getting into it. But Tesla is going to, and they may have already seen this, but they'll see that they've achieved full autonomy internally months before we see it on vehicles, and they're going to know, and there'll be some sort of development window and some testing window between that. But who knows what they could announce on an earnings call in terms of where they think they're at with full self-driving and Robotaxi. So there's a number of events coming, and then you've got these surprises with energy, and you see some of these contracts that are being announced that are just absolutely enormous. And I I think the street is starting to realize that you really can't have this conversation. Right now, the bears like to have a present or prior quarter conversation about what percent of sales are auto versus the rest of the company. But that's shifting, and that will start shifting very rapidly, and it will move so quickly to the point where they won't be able to catch up. Just like a lot of people did not catch up to NVIDIA, and they missed, its original move, doubling and tripling, and then they're getting into it, and they're still, and it's still moving up. So I think all the factions are important. I think retail's a bit ahead, and I think you're going to see a catch up here happening pretty soon because it's underperformed its relative indices, and there's a lot of the negative weight is behind us, and a lot of really, really positive catalysts are ahead. There's no givens. There's recession risk in the future. There's a number of things that are out there that could get in the way of it, but I think retail is going to be ahead, and I think they're all important.
Okay. So the three of you said that the institutional investors are important, that everybody's important because we're getting to the high volumes and where we're at now in price. But I wanted to ask Alexandra, because, and maybe this is completely wrong, to compare to GameStop, which is a stock that was driven by the retail army. And Alexandra, you've pointed out that what's different about Tesla than any other company right now is the strength of the retail investor. And you said there's 10 million retail investors, and we seem to be able to mobilize a little bit. Not that we're going to try to drive the stock up, or we're going to try to, and I'm not talking about that, but I'm just saying that isn't a retail investor as important or more important than an institutional investor for Tesla specifically? What do you think, Alexandra?
You are spot on, Herbert. And you're right. The fact that we have 10 million retail investors doesn't exist anywhere else. There is no stock out there with 10 million retail investors. There is actually no stock of the mega caps out there that has such an equitable distribution, 42% retail, 42% of institutional, and then the rest is insiders. So it is, we're really the base of the stock market, especially since most of the Tesla shareholders are not trading on a daily basis. I mean, nothing against traders. Now, what you have to understand, and you're right to point out to GameStop, is the stock market is something really not transparent. I'm hinting on that for a while now. I've put up some slides on my X account, and we've taped a very, very good video, Herbert, that you're going to publish in a couple of days on how to protect your shares. There is short selling, and short selling is only possible because there are so many retail shares that are actually used by our banks and brokers for stock lending, and then those serve for short selling. So that is a whole aspect where us as a massive retail base, we can actually make a difference. Talking about direct register shares and all that, don't want to get into that here because we did that in really lots of detail in that video. And why was I able to do all this research on that? It was because the community from the GameStop retail investors came over to me and said, look, Alexandra, we can help you. We had the same issues voting. We had the same issues that you have faced the last couple of months with proxy votes worldwide and other issues in the GameStop saga. And we found solutions, and let us share those with you. So you're completely right. And then I want to just add one last thing for Jeff's comment, and he's spot on. The times where bears are in a love relationship with VIN counting basement dwellers are over. It's really good that this works for them from time to time, but this is, there are not many quarters left for that. And I'm so looking forward when it doesn't work anymore. And when will it not work anymore? Well, when energy was going to have an even more important impact on revenues, and then obviously the whole software as a service revenues that are going to come. So just a warning to all these bears out there that are just loving it and still riding on that. And I mean, obviously had a couple of tough months behind them. So sorry, but those times are over.
Well, I'd like to make one point, if I could. When we start seeing bears counting cars, that's a buy sign. That means we're at the bottom of the current, by the current cycle. It is such a great marker, it's like never failed me. Never failed me. When I see them start counting cars or take pictures of a lot of cars in one space, I think to myself, buy. And it's never failed. Anyway, sorry.
Okay.
I just want to add, I think that like once we passed 200, everything changed. You have a new class of retail shareholders that are interested in the stock. This is something that I've been waiting for, which is analyst upgrades and people contacting me personally that I've been talking about Teslas for the last 5 years, since 2019. And now I have a guy right now that's a former team member that's actively working on options trading to do the wheel strategy, and came out of nowhere. Hey, I'm ready to deploy some cash. Same thing happens with another person. Like, I can get into specifics, but ultimately, once you have this new set of interested parties, that's that retail element that will buy the stock, no matter that it's run from the 140s or the 160s or 180s or wherever you saw it. Now we're at the 250s, and people are like calling for 220. If you look at the technicals, the multi-year trend line is good around 230, 235. Not financial advice, but like, I'm going to start redeploying some of the cash into stock because I don't know if it's going to go to 220 or 200 or go retest 150 or whatever the bears are saying. So, I just think that once you have this new attention that never existed before, it's a new market, and we shouldn't continue to look back as far.
All right, let's get to Q2 earnings call, because this is coming up on Tuesday, July 23rd. And there is, a section here to take a look at what do Tesla investors, specifically the retail investors, what are they caring about? And so this is just as of yesterday, the day after they opened it up. So the order will change, but these are the kind of questions that the retail investors are asking. What exactly is the Robotaxi event? If not, when is it? If not 8/8, so they want to know when, just like you guys said at the beginning. When do you expect the first Robotaxi ride? They're already talking about, some details about the Robotaxi event, which I think will happen at the Robotaxi event. I don't expect them to answer this question on Q2 earnings call next week. What is the updated timeline for Giga Mexico? What will be the primary vehicles produced initially? And here I thought Giga Mexico was a forgotten, nobody's really talking about it anymore, but this appears to be as top of mind. Let me pause there. Those are the 3 top questions as of now. What do you guys think?
I loved Larry's question. Larry, you want to explain us your question with the energy?
Yeah, I mean, I find some of these questions so frustrating. It's like, anyway, I want to know about the performance obligations in the note 10Q and 10K note, and exactly what is going to be, how that's going to shake out over the years. Is that going to be consistent? Are we going to see this payback? I want them to give us more color on the 10Q, because it's very critical in terms of margin on earnings. Right now, we cannot with certainty predict what earnings are going to be on energy without getting an answer to that question. So that is of great interest to me.
I agree with you. And also, I would like to hear from them for those that already are in this phase, right, where the performance becomes the last trigger for the last payment. How many of those were they able to get? Was it 100%? Fine, then I sleep well. But
they do give you a fair indication there. They tell you what to expect in the next 4 quarters, but you have and I don't know that they can yet tell us what the likelihood of recovery is. It's really, it's interesting because it looks to me like the margins are dramatically higher than we've been earning to date. But of course, we've seen the price of batteries drop and the price of Megapacks drop. So everybody's reduced their assumptions on revenue. I don't think that it's a direct correlation, because it looks to me like a very fair percentage of the contract price is not just the Megapack. It's the actual services around the Megapack. And that happens to be, we guarantee this amount of power over this period of time with this amount of charge rate, blah, blah, blah. And that's the performance obligation. So I think pricing is much more complicated than just, X number of megapacks times this X many dollars.
In your spreadsheet, because I keep it always simple, as you know, I'm basing everything on 25% of energy, because that's the number Elon gave me in that famous question after the shareholder meeting 2023. But how do you tackle it?
Well, 25% is exactly right on the target for the energy revenue directly translated into energy profit, gross profit. But you then add the performance obligations on top of that. And that's why I'm saying those performance obligations are earnings of over and above the energy, the hardware sales, as to the services or the performance guarantees or whatever you want to call them. Because if you look at the revenue, if you look at the gross margin, and then you look at the performance obligations, that's the inescapable conclusion you come to. That's the reason for my question.
Yeah, super interesting. Yeah.
The next three questions the fourth is Tesla Energy going to see the rapid growth gigawatt hour deployed going forward? The current status of 4680 battery cell production? How's the ramp up progressing? Any update on Dojo? We haven't heard from you, Jeff. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the questions are terrible.
Come on.
And they usually are.
Yeah.
These are okay. They're not terrible.
No, they're not okay.
You want to ask questions that are more, unassailable, where you honestly can get, like, for example,
real answer.
Why are you asking, like, when is this factory going to be built? Like, who cares what the answer is, unless it's tied to something where a product that doesn't exist today will exist, like when that factory is built. For example, they do need that Nevada expansion to do the semi. Okay, all right, so maybe ask about something along those lines. But I saw the question about Giga Mexico. It doesn't matter. The higher order bit is what they just did in Shanghai, which was increasing capacity by 30%. And they give that. Those are the kind of questions you'd actually want to understand. That's like a whole new factory inside of a factory that they just did. That's actually the bigger accomplishment than building some underutilized factory that's going to take 2 years to get to production. There's a question that I think the 7th highest rated question was, what's the, when is the Roadster going to be available? Yeah. So I think shareholders can ask whatever question they want. They're shareholders of the company, and if they registered on this site, they should be allowed to ask whatever they want. But I think you'd want to ask questions to the leadership team that would give you, really true insights into the company that like, will it improve its earnings power based on the results of, the answer. So that's just my advice, but anybody can ask whatever they want.
Thank you, Jeff.
I agree with you, Jeff. I actually do. So, but I guess what I noticed was, if you write a paragraph as a question, which I did because I wanted to be very precise and very specific question answers, it doesn't get voted up. But when you have these one single sentence kind of like look at this, like a single line like this, those are the ones that get voted up. And so they turn out to be not good questions, right? Because they're just so generic. Yeah. Go ahead.
Like I said, it's a free country. I mean, people should be allowed to do, but just if you want to understand something, like how is the company actually going to improve, you may want to structure your question around it. So the 4680 question, the question should be is, what output and cost, are you at today? And, where did you think, basically, where are you at with your own self plan for the product?
I agree. Let me
And-
just jump in on the 4680, if you don't mind.
Sure.
There was a very interesting article in the information. The information is unfortunately so expensive that I don't want to, I mean, and I can't share the stuff because when you sign up with them, they make you, sign that you can't share it. But anyway, they did 2 days ago a really in-depth on the 4680. And apparently there is a plan that Elon said, we're going to try it until the end of the year. If you're not where we are supposed to be by the end of the year, that's it for 4680. So I think, if you want to have a 4680 question, and if you have the willingness to invest in so much, in press that you have that information, then you can ask a good question. But everything else is just so overflowing. But I want to end this with something constructive, please. So on the Tuesday, we have the Q2 earnings. I will not participate in the live streams because I want to prepare. I want to prepare for them. Yeah. Wednesday morning, 8:00, because Bloomberg Technology has me on live. So I just want to ask all four of you and any reader that wants to jump in as well, or listener that wants to jump in, if you have any good stuff that you want me to convey on that Wednesday morning, reach out on the Tuesday, give me your bullet points. Let's think this through, because I want to make sure that they're happy with me being there and invite me again, because more we have of us retail investors up there, better it is for all of us.
Congrats. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I think Herbert would say he's going to send a link to his channel and just display it on the screen somehow.
No, that's not.
With a red logo only.
Yeah, right. No, you're going to do a great job. You know all the topics, and it's a matter of trying to figure out who's their audience and what do they want to hear. But
actually, the Bloomberg Technology live on Wednesday, so it's 8:00 Pacific, 11 Eastern. It is quite a good program because Ed Ludloff invites a lot of. He has the same day Ron Barron, not together with me, but Ron Barron is going to present the two funds that he's setting up for XAI and for SpaceX. Nice. So they have done specific topic funds. So that channel is really one of the things that I think are worth listening to. Not because I'm on it, just because he's really trying his best to bring a good technology angle to it.
Fantastic. Okay, we are done. Thank you guys very much. We covered quite a bit. All the Elon updates, the Grace Tao update. We got improvements in Giga Shanghai. You got Ark Invest and what the institutional investors are saying. Then we got Q2 earnings coming up. Next week is going to be a big week. We'll cover all of that as much as we can. Thank you very much, Alexandra, Xander, and Jeff, and of course, Larry. If you don't like the golden bull, then you got to give me a new a label that I could fix for you. Okay, I think it's good. Everything you touch is golden.
The bald bull.
The bald bull. There we are.
Bold with an O, with an A. Okay. Thank you guys very much.
Guys.
Appreciate it, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com.